The Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling will not affect the service academies. All of that and more today, June 30th, 2023. Good morning, Early Birds. I'm Zamone Perez, and this is the Early Bird Brief, produced by Defense News and Military Times. First up, the Supreme Court ended affirmative action yesterday, but the decision does not impact military service academies. In case you're not familiar, affirmative action refers to policies aimed to increase opportunities for minority groups. For higher education, that's the use of identifying information in the admissions process. The affirmative action organization Students for Fair Admissions argued in a pair of related cases that affirmative action practices at Harvard University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill amounted to racial discrimination. The Supreme Court's majority agreed, writing the policy violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which ensures equal protection under the law regardless of race. But the federal government wrote what is called a friend of the court brief, which urged the court to protect affirmative action decisions and admissions, in part to ensure racial diversity in service academies. In a footnote in the majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that race-based admission systems will not be impacted at the military academies. Supporters of affirmative action said universities have a compelling interest in enrolling a racially diverse student body, and that goal would be nearly impossible to achieve without the policy. President Joe Biden said the Supreme Court has rolled back decades of precedent.
The court has effectively ended affirmative action in college admissions, and I strongly disagree with the court's decision.
In August last year, former top military leaders filed a friend of the court brief as well. It was signed by 4 former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and 8 former academy superintendents. They argued that affirmative action was necessary for national security. The retired leaders emphasized that the officer corps already is significantly less racially diverse than the enlisted troops. They said that if that gap were to increase, it could diminish the military's legitimacy in the eyes of some Americans and impact morale. It is common for courts to defer to the military's interests in national security. The military's desire for racial diversity among officers was one of the stated reasons the Supreme Court upheld affirmative action in higher education in a 2003 case. Another important story, a multi-billion-dollar White House homelessness program includes money to help veterans. White House officials are pairing new legal support and job training programs for veterans with a $3.1 billion investment in general community support grants. Administration officials unveiled the plans yesterday. The move comes as the Veterans Affairs officials said they are on pace with their goal of permanently housing 38,000 at-risk veterans this year. According to the latest federal estimates, about 33,000 veterans across the country lack reliable permanent housing on any given day. That figure is down about 11% since 2020 and down about 55% since 2010. Veterans advocates have warned that the expiration of pandemic-era support programs and grants threatens support systems for vulnerable veterans. The multi-billion-dollar boost to the Department of Housing and Urban Development's Continuum of Care program could help offset some of those losses. The program awards funds to community groups and local governments to help provide support to families facing the threat of homelessness. Federal officials said the new money will not be earmarked solely for veterans, but participants will be directed to coordinate with the VA to ensure vets and their families are some of those being helped by the effort. 2 other new programs will be aimed directly at helping veterans. One would provide legal services for vets facing eviction, and the other would help connect veterans with job opportunities. In other news, this week, the Marine Corps has been holding its modern-day Marine Conference. Marine Corps Times editor Andrea Scott spoke with President and CEO of the Marine Corps Association, retired Lieutenant General Charles Chiarotti, who shared a little bit about the event.
Modern-day Marine in Washington, D.C. location was really born of the Commandant's vision, General Berger's vision a couple of years ago, where we really started to look at, where do we want to go with this event into the future. And really what we decided was we need to get it out of and off of the base at Quantico and bring it to the convention center, not because of the location or because of the environmental conditions or anything else like that, but it was truly about the targeted audience. And the targeted audience that we seek to really go after here are those senior leadership from the Hill, those that really we need as a Marine Corps need to help understand what are the concepts of the Marine Corps that into the future that are going to help us win and fight our battles. And then partnered with industry, we'll be able to show them the capabilities that are required, that are possible to support those concepts. And so we've come here to Wall Street Convention Center really to do just that, for that purpose.
In 2002, Becky Calder took to the skies of Afghanistan on an FA-18 pilot covering troops in need of air support. 2 years later, she attended the U.S. Navy's Fighter Weapons School, better known as Top Gun. She became the first female pilot graduate of the elite school, and Andrea also caught up with her at Modern Day Marine.
So I went to the Naval Academy to play basketball, and obviously when you go there, you have to select something for your service assignment, and it was actually a mentor of mine. He was the deputy commandant of the academy at the time, and his name was Colonel Bolden, and he was a huge fan of women's basketball, and he came to the court one day at practice, and I mean, no kidding, he looked at me and he said, "Becky, you would make a great F-18 pilot." And at that time, the combat exclusion law had just been lifted for women. So this wasn't something that I sought out to do or something that I had always thought I wanted to do. And he really encouraged me, and I remember that day, and I selected aviation, and then through flight school, I selected F-18s, and kind of my career just kind of took off.
What was it like at that time being one of the first female fighter pilots in the Navy?
That's a great question. There still today is not that many women that fly F-18s or really fly any aircraft in the military. I think that, you know, we all have our own unique experiences. And for me, when I was in flight school, I had a few other women, and I was just focusing on finishing flight school. And then I got to my first squadron, and there was 2 women actually that joined the squadron at the same time, and then the war started. So there was never a focus on, you know, who are the girls in the squadron. It was a focus on doing our job and fighting the war and being the best pilots we could be, providing the best support we could provide for the troops and the soldiers and sailors and Marines on the ground. So that's what I focused on, and I never really thought about the gender aspect of what I did or what my job was. And I just made sure that I was the best pilot I could be, that I was credible, that I was capable.
For more conversations like these, please like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Also on your radar for today, all Fort Bliss soldiers from enlisted to officers permanently assigned to the Texas base will be required to put in at least 14 days of annual leave starting in October. According to a June 22nd memo by the base's commanding general, the purpose of the mandatory leave is to give soldiers an opportunity to rest and recuperate. The base's commander, Major General James P. Eisenhower III, said in the memo that the Army hopes the move will improve soldiers' resiliency and allow them to return to duty recharged and ready for action. The leave is mandatory for all uniformed personnel permanently assigned to Fort Bliss. It can either be taken in bulk or spread out throughout the fiscal year. And now, here are some other stories that we're hearing chirps about. Pentagon spokesperson Pat Ryder told reporters that the Chinese spy balloon that caught the attention of the nation in February did not collect any aerial intelligence. That is in addition to previous statements where it was said the balloon did not transmit any intelligence back to Beijing. The U.S. Coast Guard said human remains have likely been recovered from the wreckage of the submersible that imploded during an underwater voyage to view the Titanic. Sailors from the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln extinguished an electrical fire that sparked on the ship while in port. And on Monday, be sure to tune in for a conversation with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, who is set to speak at the National Press Club, moderated by Defense News' very own Judd Judson.
I'm over here. I want to call it Chairman Kim. And we got to meet, and stepping across that line was a great honor. A lot of progress has been made. A lot of friendships have been made, and this has been in particular.
And on this day in history, in 2019, then-President Donald Trump became the first sitting American commander-in-chief to set foot in North Korea. He met Kim Jong-un, the country's leader, at the heavily fortified, demilitarized zone. That's it for us this morning. To get more top stories and breaking news, go to defensenews.com/EBB to subscribe to the Early Bird Brief newsletter. Please give us a like, rating, and a comment wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at @defense_news and @Military Times. The Early Bird Brief is hosted and produced by me, Zabone Z. Perez. Today's episode features stories by Irene Lowenson, Leo Shane III, Andrea Scott, and Georgina DiNardo. Our editor-in-chief is Mike Gruss. Have a great day.